What if I told you that the headlines you scrolled past this morning were already written thousands of years ago? Think about that for a second. A prophecy disguised as news, a warning hidden in plain sight, and yet most of us keep swiping. Let me ask you, how many times have you heard someone say, "The world feels different these days"? Violence everywhere, natural disasters multiplying, nations rising against nations. It sounds like today's breaking news, but it's also ancient scripture. It's like watching a movie, only to realize halfway through that you've seen the script before. Let's get real. We live in a world where war isn't out there anymore. It's live streamed to your phone. Where earthquakes don't just shake the ground, they shake economies. Where morality shifts not by centuries, but by hashtags. The question is, coincidence or confirmation? Imagine you're driving on a highway, the signs warn, bridge out ahead. Now, you could argue, maybe it's just construction, or maybe the sign's outdated. But would you really keep driving at full speed? That's what ignoring these times is like. The warnings are there, but are we paying attention? Here's the twist most people miss. These end of times signs, they aren't meant to terrify you, they're meant to prepare you. Because with every warning, there's also an invitation to wake up, to rise above fear, to strengthen what really matters: faith, love, resilience, hope. Maybe the end of times isn't just about the world collapsing. Maybe it's also about you ending the old version of yourself, the version that lived distracted, fearful, unprepared, and stepping into a new version, awake, aware, unstoppable. So here's the truth. You're not here by accident. You're hearing this because you're part of the few, the ones who don't just watch history, but shape it. The signs are clear. The question is, what will you do with them? Because if the world is changing, then maybe, just maybe, it's your time to change with it. And when you do, you won't just survive the times. You'll rise above them, like the chosen, like the few, like the ones who saw the signs and stepped into destiny. Today's events mirror ancient prophecies, showing clear signs of change. Disasters, wars, and moral decline are more than coincidence. They align with end-time warnings. Signs aren't just global, they're personal, like compassion fading and loneliness rising. Ignoring the warnings is like ignoring a bridge out sign on the highway. These signs aren't meant to create fear, but to awaken preparation, faith, and resilience. The end of times can also mean the end of old habits and the rise of a stronger, awakened self. Imagine waking up one morning, scrolling through your phone, and seeing the top headlines. Another earthquake somewhere across the world. Another war erupting between nations. Another political scandal that shakes trust in leadership. Another story of children caught in violence they didn't choose. You pause, you sigh, and then, just like the rest of us, you keep scrolling. But here's the strange thing. What if those very headlines weren't new at all? What if, in a way, they were déjà vu? Words written centuries ago, echoing through the news cycle of today, like ink from ancient pages bleeding into modern screens. For generations, people have read about the signs of the end times. Wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, famine, natural disasters, a breakdown of morality. And for generations, skeptics shrugged. They said, every era has its problems. Every age believes it's the last one. And in a sense, they're right. Human history has always had wars, plagues, and tragedies. But what makes today different isn't just the presence of these signs. It's the convergence. It's the way so many pieces of the puzzle are clicking into place all at once, faster than ever before. Think of it like standing at the edge of a storm. A single gust of wind might not mean much. A dark cloud might not worry you. A flash of lightning might be nothing more than a passing spark. But when the wind, the clouds, and the lightning gather together, you don't dismiss it, you recognize the storm. Today, our world isn't facing isolated gusts or random flashes. It feels like the full storm is pressing in from every direction. Take natural disasters. Reports show that earthquakes, hurricanes, and wildfires are not only increasing in frequency, but in intensity. People argue about climate change, about politics, about science, but the undeniable truth is this: creation itself is groaning louder than before. Farmers talk about seasons shifting unpredictably, harvests failing, and soil becoming exhausted. Families lose homes overnight as fires devour entire towns. Survivors of tsunamis recall the sound, the roar of water like a monster no one could stop. And you can't help but ask, is this chaos random, or is it part of a bigger, older story? Then there are the wars and rumors of wars. If you talk to older generations, they'll tell you about how news of conflict used to trickle in slowly, sometimes days or weeks after events. Now, we don't just hear about wars, we watch them unfold in real time, on live streams, with commentary, with footage that looks almost like a video game, but is tragically real. A missile lands, and within seconds the world knows. A border is crossed, and within minutes the markets shake. Nations clash not just on battlefields, but in cyber networks, in trade wars, in the silent battles of espionage. And while leaders talk of peace, somehow, everywhere you look, new conflicts ignite like sparks on dry grass. And isn't it strange that the phrase "rumors of wars" fits perfectly in our age? Because wars today aren't just about bullets and tanks, they're also about whispers, leaks, and speculation. A single rumor on social media can cause panic, shift global economies, or push nations closer to conflict. It's not just the war itself, it's the shadow of war, the fear of what could happen next, that keeps people awake at night. But maybe the most chilling part isn't the wars or the disasters, it's the moral unraveling. Think about how fast values are shifting. Things once considered absolute truths are now debated daily, with every voice fighting to be the loudest. Families are fractured, communities divided, friendships ended over opinions typed on a screen. People seem more outraged, more divided, more suspicious of one another than ever before. Compassion feels rare. Trust feels fragile. And yet, when you compare this to ancient texts describing hearts growing cold in the last days, it doesn't feel like coincidence. It feels like fulfillment. I once heard a grandmother say, "I don't recognize the world my grandchildren are growing up in." She didn't mean the technology or the fashion. She meant the spirit of the times. A generation bombarded with anxiety, glued to screens, drowning in information, but starving for wisdom. It's as though humanity has gained knowledge at lightning speed, but lost something deeper in the process. And that, knowledge without wisdom, progress without compassion, was also foretold. Now, here's what makes this all so unsettling. None of this feels distant anymore. It's not some academic discussion, not something you study in a dusty book. It's in your feed. It's in your neighborhood. It's in the conversations you overhear at coffee shops, in the headlines flashing on the subway screens, in the prayers whispered by people who feel the ground shifting beneath their lives. You don't have to search for the signs are searching for you, and maybe that's the part that stirs the most unease. Because if the signs are real, if today's events are mirroring ancient prophecies, then the question isn't just what's happening to the world. The deeper question is, what does it mean for me? It's one thing to see chaos on the outside. It's another to feel the tremors inside your own soul, to wonder if the world is changing too fast for you to keep up, or if maybe it's not just the world that's supposed to change. Maybe it's you. When you put all of this together, the disasters, the wars, the moral unraveling, it doesn't feel like random coincidence. It feels like a script being played out on the global stage, a script written long before you or I ever arrived. And if that's true, then every headline isn't just information. It's a reminder, a nudge, a wake-up call, not to scare you, but to prepare you, to remind you that history isn't out of control, even when it feels that way. Someone once said, "The signs of the times are not meant to make us afraid. They're meant to make us aware." And awareness is a gift. Because once you're aware, you stop living numb. You stop scrolling past the news like it's just noise. You start paying attention. And when you pay attention, you realize you've been invited into the story, not as a bystander, but as someone with a part to play. When most people hear about the end of times signs, their minds go straight to the dramatic images: earthquakes, fire falling from the sky, floods sweeping across cities, wars exploding across borders. But here's the part almost nobody talks about: the quieter sign, the one you can't see on the news ticker, but you can feel in your chest. It's the sign of hearts growing cold, the sign of compassion slipping away little by little until people stop noticing that it's even missing. Think about how strange this age really is. We've never been more connected. A teenager in New York can send a message to someone in Tokyo in less than a second. We carry entire networks of thousands of friends in our pockets. We see more faces in a single scroll than our great-grandparents saw in a month. And yet, psychologists are saying loneliness has become one of the greatest epidemics of our time. Isn't that strange? Surrounded by millions of voices, and still so many people feel unseen, unheard, untouched. I once heard someone describe it like this: we live in crowded rooms with empty hearts. That hit me. Because you can be sitting at a dinner table with family, everyone glued to their screens, and realize you haven't truly spoken to each other in hours. You can walk into a cafe full of people, and not one pair of eyes meets another. You can have 500 followers on Instagram and still not have one person you feel safe enough to call when your world falls apart. That's not just loneliness, it's coldness, and it's spreading. You see it in the way people drive on the highway, cutting each other off, shouting from behind the safety of glass and steel. You see it in workplaces, where competition swallows cooperation, where someone's downfall becomes another person's entertainment. You see it in the way tragedies get reduced to hashtags. A disaster happens, lives are lost, and within minutes it's trending. But within hours, people scroll past, distracted by the next shiny post, the next scandal, the next distraction. Pain is consumed, digested, and forgotten faster than ever before. And yet, it wasn't always this way. Ask the elders, and they'll tell you stories of neighborhoods where everyone knew each other's names. Where if someone was sick, the whole block would bring food. Where kids played outside, not because it was safe, but because it was family. That warmth didn't mean a world without problems, but it meant people had each other. And now, here we are, with more access to each other than any generation before. And yet walls thicker than ever between our hearts. Some say it's because we've gotten busier. Others say it's because we've gotten more distracted. But whatever the reason, the effect is the same: compassion feels scarce. Hearts are colder, and if you think about it, that's more dangerous than any war. Because wars destroy cities, but coldness destroys souls. Let me give you an example. Picture a crowded subway train. A man collapses, clutching his chest. You'd imagine everyone would rush to help, right? But too often, what really happens is this: people freeze. Some assume someone else will act. Others hesitate, afraid of getting involved. Some even lift their phones, recording instead of rescuing. That hesitation, that shrinking of compassion, that's the coldness I'm talking about. It's not that humanity has stopped caring altogether. It's that caring requires effort, and effort feels inconvenient. I read once about a psychologist who called this the bystander effect. The more people who witness an emergency, the less likely any one person is to help, because the responsibility feels diluted. But isn't that the perfect picture of our age? So many eyes, so many voices, so much access, and yet the more crowded the world feels, the easier it is to say, "It's not my problem." That's what coldness looks like when it sneaks into everyday life. And loneliness is its shadow. It creeps in even when surrounded by noise. A young professional sitting in a high-rise apartment, scrolling through photos of parties they weren't invited to. A college student lying in bed at 2 a.m., hearing laughter outside but feeling no one would notice if they disappeared. An elderly widow staring at the phone, waiting for a call that doesn't come. These are not statistics. These are real people. And maybe, if you're honest, you felt it too. And doesn't it strike you as more than coincidence that ancient writings warned of this? That in the last days, people would grow more self-centered, lovers of themselves, lacking natural affection. That love would grow cold, not just between nations, but between neighbors, between families, even within the human heart. That sounds less like an ancient prophecy and more like a mirror being held up to our lives. What makes it even heavier is how subtle it all is. Wars make noise, earthquakes shake the ground, but coldness slips in quietly. You don't even realize it's happening until one day you notice you don't cry at tragedies anymore. Until one day you realize you scroll past suffering as if it's just background noise. Until one day you see a homeless person on the street and your first thought isn't, how can I help? But how quickly can I pass? That's when you know the heart has grown cold. And here's the chilling part: coldness is contagious. One cold heart can freeze another. One act of indifference can ripple outward until it becomes the norm. And soon, kindness looks strange, compassion looks rare, and cynicism feels safer than hope. Isn't that the age we're living in? An age where optimism is mocked, where trust feels naïve, where believing in goodness makes you look foolish. But every time I think about this, I remember something a teacher once told me. Darkness doesn't need to be fought. It only needs light. Coldness doesn't spread because people are evil at their core. It spreads because people stop lighting fires of love, stop choosing compassion, stop daring to care. And when enough people stop, the cold feels overwhelming. That's why this particular sign, the sign of hearts growing cold, is so critical. Because it's not about watching the skies for falling stars or scanning the ground for cracks in the earth. It's about looking in the mirror. It's about asking yourself, has my heart grown colder than it used to be? Have I let distraction or fear or pride make me less compassionate, less present, less willing to love? Because maybe the greatest danger isn't what's happening out there in the world. Maybe the greatest danger is what's happening inside us, quietly, subtly, while we're too busy scrolling to notice. And if we can wake up to that, if we can choose to resist the cold, to reignite warmth, to offer compassion in small, everyday ways, then maybe we not only see the sign, but we refuse to be part of it. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly the invitation hidden within it. Imagine you're driving late at night on a quiet highway. The road stretches endlessly in front of you, dark and empty. Only the faint glow of your headlights cutting through the black. The hum of the tires lulls you into comfort. You glance at the dashboard, the fuel gauge, maybe even reach for your favorite song on the radio. And then, up ahead, a sign flashes bridge out ahead. You catch it out of the corner of your eye. For a moment, your mind resists. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe the sign is outdated. Maybe there's still a chance the bridge is fine. And in that split second of hesitation, you have to make a decision. Do you keep pressing the accelerator, trusting your assumptions, or do you slow down, take the warning seriously, and prepare for a detour? That is what ignoring the times we're living in is like. Because warnings don't always come with blaring alarms and neon lights. Sometimes they show up quietly, like headlines scrolling across your phone, like a conversation overheard at the grocery store, like a tug in your spirit that whispers something isn't right. And yet, just like the driver on that highway, so many of us brush it off. We assume the warning isn't for us. We tell ourselves, it's probably nothing. But what if it isn't nothing? What if those little flashes of caution are the only thing standing between safety and collapse? History is full of examples where warnings were ignored and the consequences were devastating. Think about the story of the Titanic. Multiple iceberg warnings were sent to the ship, but they were dismissed as routine, unurgent, or exaggerated. The passengers laughed, danced, and dined while danger waited silently in the dark. By the time the iceberg struck, it was too late. That ship wasn't lost because no one saw the danger. It was lost because the danger was seen but not taken seriously. Doesn't that feel eerily similar to the world right now? Disasters, wars, moral unraveling. None of it is hidden. It's right in front of us. But how often do we scroll past it like background noise, convincing ourselves it's nothing more than the ordinary chaos of life? Or think of the people living near Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Historical accounts say there were days of tremors and smoke before the eruption buried Pompeii. Some fled at the first sign, but many stayed, ignoring the warnings, convinced life would continue as normal. We know how that story ended. Entire families frozen in time, preserved in ash. Because they mistook warning signs for coincidences. That's the haunting thing about warnings. They don't look catastrophic at first. They look ordinary. They look dismissible. Until suddenly, they don't. Now, let's bring it closer to home. Imagine a doctor telling a patient their blood pressure is dangerously high. The doctor urges lifestyle changes, a new diet, maybe medication. But the patient feels fine. They leave the office, eat the same meals, ignore the advice. Why? Because warnings rarely feel urgent until the crisis arrives. And by then, it's often too late to undo the damage. That's exactly what's happening when people see today's events, feel the weight of prophecy echoing through them, and still say, maybe later. Maybe it won't affect me. Maybe it's just the way the world is. The truth is, warnings are acts of mercy, not threats. They are given so we can prepare, not so we can panic. Bridge out. Sign isn't there to ruin your journey. It's there to save your life. Yet so often, we treat spiritual and moral warnings as inconveniences. We'd rather keep driving at full speed toward the bridge, enjoying the ride, pretending everything is fine. We forget that ignorance doesn't cancel consequences. It only delays awareness of them. And isn't it interesting how warnings in our daily lives often mirror this? A friend who says, "I'm worried about you. You've been distant lately." A spouse who whispers, "We don't talk the way we used to." A child who acts out, not because they're bad, but because they're begging for attention. These are signs too. Signs of bridges weakening in relationships, in families, in souls. But how often do we dismiss them? How often do we assume the bridge can hold just a little longer, that we can ignore the cracks until tomorrow? The danger of ignoring warnings isn't just the collapse itself. It's the comfort that blinds us before the collapse. Like the frog in the pot of water that heats so slowly it never realizes it's boiling. Like the driver who convinces themselves the sign doesn't apply to them. Like the patient who delays change until the heart attack arrives. Comfort lulls us into thinking there's always more time. But warnings are reminders that time isn't endless. Someone once said, "The tragedy of life isn't that people don't see the signs. It's that they choose not to." And that choice is often disguised in ordinary words. "I'll think about it later." "Things will get better on their own." "I don't want to be alarmist." But later becomes never. Problems left alone rarely solve themselves, and ignoring reality doesn't make it disappear. What warnings do is hand us a choice: wake up now or pay the cost later. And maybe the most personal part of this is the fact that every warning feels inconvenient. It interrupts, it forces change. No one likes detours. No one likes slowing down when the road feels smooth. No one likes admitting they were heading in the wrong direction. But the alternative, charging ahead into collapse, is far worse. The wise see warnings not as obstacles but as lifelines. The unwise see them as annoyances. Which voice do you listen to when the sign flashes on your road? Every day, people face small, bridge out signs, health scares, broken relationships, whispers of conviction in their conscience. And every day, people choose whether to heed or ignore them. The scary part is how easy it is to normalize danger, to keep driving because everyone else is driving too, to dismiss it because the crowd seems calm. But crowds don't guarantee safety. Crowds have ignored warnings before, and crowds have fallen together. And maybe that's the most urgent point of all. Warnings are never comfortable, but comfort is rarely safe. If the bridge ahead truly is out, then the most dangerous choice isn't panic. It's denial. Denial disguised as confidence. Denial disguised as normalcy. Denial disguised as business as usual. So when you hear the warnings in today's events, whether global disasters, moral collapse, or the still, small voice inside reminding you to wake up, don't treat them as noise. Don't dismiss them as outdated signs. Because the ones who survive storms, the ones who avoid collapse, the ones who find a way through aren't the ones who drive blindly into the night. They're the ones who saw the sign, slowed down, and chose a different way. And maybe that's the entire point of the signs we're seeing now. Not to paralyze us with fear, but to shake us out of denial, to redirect us, to give us a chance to take a safer, higher road before it's too late. It's easy to think that signs of the end times are meant to make us afraid. After all, the images sound terrifying. Earthquakes that rip apart cities, wars that spread like fire, families breaking apart, people turning cold. Fear feels like the natural response. But what if that's not the purpose at all? What if these signs aren't alarms meant to paralyze you, but invitations meant to prepare you? That shift in perspective changes everything. Because preparation isn't born from fear, it's born from awareness. And awareness gives you the power to choose differently. Think of the weather forecast. When a storm is coming, meteorologists issue warnings. They don't do it to scare people out of their homes. They do it to give them time. Time to stock up on supplies, to bring loved ones together, to board up windows, to find safety. A storm warning is never the storm itself. It's a gift. It's a head start. The people who prepare aren't the ones who panic. They're the ones who listen, take the message seriously, and act while there's still time. The same is true with these signs. They aren't here to destroy hope. They're here to sharpen it. I once spoke to a man who lived through a major hurricane. He said the difference between his family's survival and his neighbor's tragedy came down to one thing: listening to the warnings. It wasn't the storm that surprised us, he said. It was how many people ignored the signs. They wanted to keep living like it was just another day. That line has never left me. How many of us live like it's just another day, ignoring the warnings all around us, assuming we'll have endless tomorrows? The truth is, the warnings aren't there to scare us, they're there to wake us up before it's too late. Fear says, hide. Preparation says, stand. Fear says, it's hopeless. Preparation says, get ready for what's next. Fear drains your energy. Preparation directs it. That's why these signs matter. They aren't announcing an ending. They're announcing a shift. And those who prepare aren't the ones crushed by the shift. They're the ones who rise through it. It reminds me of fire drills in schools. As kids, we'd line up in neat rows, walk out calmly, sometimes even laughing with our friends. The alarm blared, but we knew it wasn't a fire. It was practice, a rehearsal so that if the real thing ever happened, we wouldn't freeze in fear. We'd already know what to do. What if that's what these end-time signs are? Not punishment, not panic, but rehearsals. Wake up calls. Opportunities to practice living alert, living awake, living ready, so that when the heat comes, we know where to stand. And preparation doesn't always mean stocking up on canned food or finding a bunker. Sometimes preparation means strengthening what truly matters, rebuilding relationships you've neglected, restoring the faith you've let slip, learning to live with gratitude instead of distraction, choosing forgiveness over bitterness. These things sound small, but when the world shakes, they're the anchors that hold you steady. Because the truth is, you can survive earthquakes and wars and famines if your soul is anchored. But if your soul is hollow, even the smallest storm can break you. I remember hearing a teacher say, the strongest trees don't escape storms. They survive because their roots run deep. That image has stayed with me. Preparation isn't about escaping storms. It's about growing roots deep enough to withstand them. Every sign you see today is an invitation to plant deeper roots, to stop living shallow, distracted, surface lives, to stop assuming tomorrow is guaranteed, to start investing in the things that last, the things no earthquake can shake and no war can erase. There's a story of two builders, one who built his house on sand and the other on rock. Both houses looked fine when the weather was calm, but when the storm hit, only one stood. The difference wasn't in the beauty of the house, it was in the strength of the foundation. These signs are reminders to check your foundation, to ask yourself, what am I really building on? Is it something temporary, like wealth or recognition or comfort? Or is it something eternal, like love, truth, and faith? Because when the storms hit, it won't be the size of your house that matters. It will be the depth of your foundation. So maybe the signs aren't warnings of destruction, but reminders of construction. Not the end is near, but build wisely now. Not be terrified, but be prepared. Because panic never built anything strong, but preparation always has. And if you think about it, isn't that what real love does? It warns you not to scare you, but to protect you. A parent warns their child not to touch the hot stove, not because they want to terrify them, but because they want to keep them safe. Warnings are signs of love, not threats of doom. So when you hear about the signs, the wars, the disasters, the moral unraveling, don't let your heart collapse under fear. Let it rise in awareness. Let it see that these aren't just random events. They're reminders. They're signals that life is precious, that time is short, that preparation is wisdom. And the people who hear them and respond aren't the ones crushed by the times. They're the ones who walk through them with clarity, with courage, with calm. Because at the end of the day, the signs aren't about the storm itself. They're about giving you enough light to walk through the darkness, enough direction to choose the higher road, enough warning to step into the future not as a victim of fear, but as someone prepared, awake, and unshaken. Every warning life gives is also an invitation. That's the part most people miss. We hear the word warning and immediately think of something negative, something to avoid, something meant to scare us into silence. But what if the warnings we see today, the chaos in the world, the unraveling of values, the disasters and unrest, are not closed doors but open ones? Not messages of doom but messages of possibility. What if every shaking you see outside is really a whisper urging you to look inside and decide what you will strengthen before it's too late? Think about how a fire alarm works. It doesn't just scream to terrify you. Its shrill sound is a call to action. It tells you, get up, move now, save what matters most. That alarm doesn't make the fire go away, but it does give you the time and clarity to respond. Life's warnings are the same. They aren't meant to paralyze you with dread. They're meant to awaken you from sleepwalking. They call you to rise, to shift, to secure what truly matters before the flames get too close. I once knew a man who lived through an earthquake in the middle of the night. He told me the shaking woke him instantly, but what he remembered most was not the noise or the fear. It was how clearly he thought in that moment. I didn't care about the dishes or the furniture, he said. All I thought was, where's my wife? Where are my kids? It struck me because that's what warnings do. They strip away the illusions. They reveal what matters. They pull you out of distraction and remind you of priorities. The question is, do we need to wait for the earth to shake before we wake up? Or can we wake up now when the warnings are already here? Fear tells you to hide. Fear tells you to curl up in a corner and hope the storm passes. But warnings aren't given so you can hide. They're given so you can prepare, so you can grow, so you can walk forward with confidence. That's why every warning is also an invitation to courage, to rise above fear, not be consumed by it. To see that while you can't control the storm, you can control your response to it. And maybe that's the greatest power you've been given, not the ability to stop chaos, but the ability to stand steady in the middle of it. Think of it like sailing. A storm at sea is terrifying, but the sailor who reads the skies, adjusts the sails, and ties down the ropes isn't paralyzed. He's prepared. He doesn't pretend the storm isn't real, but he also doesn't let it destroy him. Instead, he uses the storm to sharpen his skill, to test his resilience, to make him a better sailor. Isn't that what these signs are calling us to? Not to deny the storm or collapse under it, but to use it as training, to use it as an invitation to grow stronger than we ever thought possible. And the invitation doesn't just apply to the big dramatic parts of life. It's in the everyday moments too. When you feel that tug of conviction in your heart, telling you to forgive someone you've been holding a grudge against, that's a warning and an invitation. A warning that bitterness can rot you from the inside, but also an invitation to freedom. When you notice how distant you've grown from your own family, that's a warning and an invitation. A warning that relationships left untended collapse, but an invitation to repair them while there's still time. When you feel restless, knowing you've been chasing things that don't satisfy, that's a warning and an invitation. A warning that time is short, but an invitation to invest in something eternal. Every shaking, every disruption, every sign you see in the world today is whispering the same thing. Wake up. Don't live numb. Don't drift through life half asleep, scrolling and consuming, waiting for tomorrow as if tomorrow is guaranteed. The invitation is to live awake, to notice, to care, to love intentionally, to strengthen the things that last. I once heard someone say, fear makes you freeze, but love makes you move. That line matters because when you see the signs, you have a choice. You can freeze, drowning in fear, or you can move fueled by love for what matters most. And when you choose love, suddenly the warnings don't feel like threats anymore. They feel like opportunities. They feel like second chances. They feel like reminders that you're still here, still breathing, still able to shift your path. So maybe the real message hidden inside every sign is this: don't waste the time you've been given. Strengthen your faith, not your fear. Strengthen your relationships, not your resentments. Strengthen your courage, not your excuses. Because when the shaking comes, and it will, it won't be your fear that saves you. It will be the love you've nurtured, the hope you've built, the resilience you've grown. Warnings give you that chance. They don't predict your collapse. They invite your rise. When people hear the phrase, "end of times," they almost always picture the world collapsing. Skies darkening, mountains crumbling, oceans rising, chaos on every side. But what if the most powerful meaning of that phrase isn't only about the world out there, but about the world inside you? What if the hand of times can also mean the end of certain times in your own life? The end of living distracted, the end of carrying dead weight, the end of being held back by fears and habits that have chained you for years. Maybe the signs we see in the world aren't just global. They're personal, nudging you to put an end to the version of yourself that isn't meant to survive the future, and to rise into the version of yourself that's awake, aware, and unstoppable. Think about it. Every great transformation in life feels like an ending before it feels like a beginning. The caterpillar has to end before the butterfly begins. A seed has to die in the ground before a tree grows. A night has to end before the sun rises. We talk so much about beginnings, but beginnings only come after something else has closed. And maybe the shaking of the world around us is echoing that same truth, that in order for something new to rise, something old has to end. I once spoke with a man who battled addiction for over a decade. He said his turning point didn't come from hearing another lecture or reading another book. It came the night he realized his old life had reached its end. It wasn't just that I was tired, he told me. It was that I knew I couldn't survive another day being who I had been. That version of me had to die, or I would. That night was the end of times for him, but it was also the start of his freedom. Isn't that the same choice so many of us face? Maybe not with substances, but with the invisible habits that keep us trapped: fear, comparison, bitterness, distraction, excuses. At some point, the old self has to end so the new self can rise. It's like carrying a heavy backpack on a long hike. At first, you think you can handle it. You adjust your shoulders. You tell yourself it's not too bad. But after miles of walking, the weight digs into your skin, your steps slow, your energy drains. Then someone asks you a simple question. Why are you still carrying that? You could let it go. And in that moment, you realize the truth. The weight wasn't tied to you. You were holding on to it. That's what the end of times can mean. The end of carrying what was never meant to go with you into the future. And it doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes the end of times is quiet. It's a decision made in a bedroom at midnight where someone decides to stop pretending to be fine and finally asks for help. It's a conversation where forgiveness is given after years of silence. It's a choice to put down the phone, turn off the noise, and be present with the people you love. These endings don't make headlines, but they change lives. They end the times of numbness, bitterness, isolation, and they begin the times of healing, courage, and connection. The ancient texts that speak of the end of times describe not just destruction, but renewal. They don't just talk about what falls apart. They talk about what is made new. And if you really think about it, isn't that the heartbeat of every human story? The end of childhood leading to adulthood, the end of heartbreak leading to wisdom, the end of despair leading to resilience. We fear endings because they feel like death, but often they are the birthplace of the very life we've been longing for. I once heard someone say, maybe the world doesn't end in one explosion. Maybe it ends and begins every time a person decides they will no longer live small. That line struck me, because maybe your personal end of times isn't about the planet. Maybe it's about the end of your fear of failure, the end of hiding your voice, the end of drifting through days as if they don't matter. And maybe your new beginning is the courage to live awake, to live intentional, to live as if every moment counts, because it does. So when you hear about the signs, don't only look outward with dread. Look inward with hope. Ask yourself, what in me is supposed to end? What version of me needs to fall away so that a truer, stronger version can rise? Because if the world is shaking, maybe it's not just the earth trembling. Maybe it's your old self cracking open so something greater can be born. And when that happens, you stop fearing the end. You start welcoming it. Not because you want destruction, but because you understand the secret. Every ending carries within it the seed of a new beginning. So here we are, standing in a moment where the world feels like it's shaking, where the signs are loud and the future feels uncertain. But hear me when I say this, the signs are not here to scare you. They are here to wake you. To wake you from distraction. To wake you from fear. To wake you from living small when you were created for something greater. The signs are not here to paralyze you. They are here to prepare you. Prepare you to let go of what holds you back. Prepare you to love when the world grows cold. Prepare you to stand when others fall. And the signs are not here to end you. They are here to invite you. Invite you into courage. Invite you into hope. Invite you into becoming the version of yourself that was meant for this very moment in history. Because the truth is this, every warning is a choice. Every shaking is a chance. Every ending carries a beginning. So don't wait. Don't scroll past. Don't ignore the flashing lights on your road. Act now. Wake up now. Rise now. Because if the times are ending, then maybe it's time for the old you to end too. So the new you, the stronger you, the awakened you can finally begin. And when you rise, others will rise with you. So remember this, the signs are not against you. They are for you. They are not curses, they are calls. They are not the end, they are the beginning. The question is not, will the world change? The question is, will you? And if you do, if you truly rise, if you truly awaken, then no matter what happens out there, you will not just survive the times, you will transform them. And that is the legacy of those who see the signs, those who hear the call, those who refuse to sleep through history. So take this moment, take this warning, take this invitation, because the time is now. The choice is yours. And the future, yes, the future begins with you.